Unfortunately, the number one reason why people go to their portal is to go cancel. What we're trying to do on the customer portal is like, how do we convince people the product's not the issue, right? It's the fact that you just have too much. Having an option for people when they say they have too much product to edit their frequency, right? I think what a lot of people in the industry do right now is skip, delay, which just kind of pushes the issue off till later. That's the default for everybody. At the end of the day, the core issue is that they just get the product too often for how often they use it.
Welcome back to another episode of Tomorrow Brand, powered by Recharge. Today, we have the co-founder and CEO of Carpe, Kasper, and as well as we have Daniel, who is the director of e-commerce, joining us and coming in and talking about what it's taken them to build the brand to where it is today, but also with a heavy focus on subscription and some of the cool tactics they're doing to build their business. So first of all, for the few people who maybe don't know about you guys or don't know about your brand, why don't each of you take a minute to just give a little bit of an introduction of your backgrounds?
Yeah, so my co-founder David and I started Carpe when we were freshmen in college because we both had sweaty hands and wanted to do something to stop our sweaty hands. And it's grown into the #1 dermatologist recommended sweat brand for all over the body. So our big focus is sweat and sweat all over the body. And that's basically what we do for anybody who's bothered not just by odor, but by their actual sweat, whether it's, sweaty pit stains or sweaty nervous hands or even a sweaty face. We try to make the best solutions out there possible for them. So there's a really natural tie into subscription here because when you're using something like an antiperspirant, that's not something you're going to use for a month and that's stop.
Right.
That's something that you're going to be using every month. And so that's a recurring product. And especially because we're not in retail yet, it's kind of a lot to ask of people to log in every single month, purchase another stick, when instead they can just be getting those automatically delivered to their door. So I think subscription's always been a very natural complement to our business, the most natural way for this company to work as an e-commerce business. And it's taken us a very long time to really figure out how to make subscription work. So I'm excited to talk about that today. And thank you for having us on the show.
Well, no, thank you. And Daniel, a little bit of your background too.
Yeah, I met David and Kasper about 4 years ago. I joined as just a little web developer on the website. And, I've really taken a liking to CRO and growing the website as big as I can. And about a year ago, we really started to push into subscriptions. And so, yeah, I've really just kind of taken that over the last year and it's scaled to the moon. So.
That's amazing. Well, I'd love to understand, before we get into like the nitty gritty of what you guys have done to build the brand to where it is today, tell us a little bit about your category too, right? You have, you mentioned it is something that ties in really well with being a retention focused and subscription focused product. But is that what you guys thought of when you started the business? Like, hey, this is a smart product to come out with because people are going to always need it? Or is it more of like, we're just trying to solve this problem and it just turned into that? So give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, it was going to be just a single product, just a fun project kind of in college. When David and I met, I had this mindset of working with various people on various projects, freshman year of college, with the idea that I was studying physics and computer science at Duke and I wanted to learn entrepreneurship kind of by doing. And I was doing that through working with various people on various projects. And a lot of them were a lot more technically focused. And when I met David and he says, hey, we both have sweaty hands, I've been toying with the idea of making a hand antiperspirant. I thought that was, at the time, the least exciting thing in the world. Right. But he was very passionate about it. And I'm like, all right, well, it is a problem for me. But I figured that if this was a big problem for a lot of people, we'd have seen a lot more validation by now. And he said, look, I've talked to dermatologists, I've visited them, and they said that there is no first-line solution for excessive sweat. I mean, people are going to dermatologists and needing to get prescription treatments for anticholinergics, Botox, and they just want something simple for people's sweaty hands. And I said, okay, well, if the demand is there, why isn't this already in Walgreens? Why isn't this online? And we looked online and there were a lot of hand antiperspirants out there. They just all had an average rating of about 1 star. And so again, that was, I think, the extent of the market validation. And we figured there's clearly a need here, but it's probably not a massive need. This probably isn't like going to be a global brand. We just want to make an effective solution for sweaty hands. And when we bought these products online, we realized that they were all very greasy. People were just taking an antiperspirant active ingredient and putting it in a lotion, which makes your hands feel sweatier. So for the next year, our goal became to develop just this inactive base for the active ingredient that, went on smooth, that didn't leave residue, but that dried quick, that made your hands feel less sweaty rather than more greasy. And so when we succeeded at that, we started selling our product on Amazon and on our website in 2015. And the reviews came in very, very well. I mean, it grew off organic acquisition for the first year or so. And we thought, honestly, at the time that this is probably going to be it. We're just going to have a nice, small hand antiperspirant out there. But dermatologists actually started coming to us because we were pretty involved in the dermatologist community in North Carolina. That's how we were getting a lot of feedback about the products and understanding how people were actually using them. I mean, we wanted to work with the people who, work with people with excessive sweating every single day. It's not that our focus was clinically excessive sweating, but it's sort of like if you're making a solution for a problem that people at the extreme will see dermatologists for, you want to be working with dermatologists. And what we started hearing from these dermatologists is that they were recommending this product for people to use on their underarms. And we said, that's insane. There's so many underarm antiperspirants. And the dermatologists were saying, yeah, but I haven't seen any that work as well as yours.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of us starting to get into underarm antiperspirant development because we thought that was kind of a solved problem. We thought underarm antiperspirants were going to be as good as they get. But it turns out that through our focus on the inactive ingredients, really, on like the drying and sweat wicking and sweat absorbing ingredients in the rest of the formula, we created something that could outperform for a lot of people what they were currently using for their underarms. And so that became one of the biggest categories of our business. And through that time, we also continued to move into sweat all over the body because, sweating doesn't just happen on the hands. It doesn't just happen on the underarms. It happens on the feet, face, breasts, thighs, everywhere. So we have sweat solutions for the entire body. But I do think that the way a lot of people are discovering us right now is as an alternative to what they're currently using for their underarms, because they're either not happy with the sweat control that they're getting for their underarms, or they're using something that doesn't stop sweat at all. They're using a deodorant that doesn't have any antiperspirant properties. And so that has been, I think, why Carpe has really grown a lot over the last few years, is because we're just providing a solution to a problem that a lot of people have and that they haven't found an adequate solution for.
It's incredible. A lot of our theme of the Tomorrow Brand podcast is about not just creating products and thinking of, what problems to solve, but also how you're going to think about evolving into tomorrow, and how do you stay and become a brand that isn't just thought about as a solution for today, but also for tomorrow. And so I think a lot of how you guys have built has been incredible. One little fun fact we like to do for all brands as a little icebreaker before we get into, again, like the tactics we said, is give us the story of the name. How did Carpe get?
I wish we had a great story here. All right, so the original name was Clutch. Our legal name is still Clutch Inc. because we incorporated it as Clutch because we thought it was the best pun. It's like, it's coming in clutch. You're clutching somebody's hand with your dry, confident handshake. And when we started working with our first real advisors, these three guys in downtown Durham who had previously sold Thundershirt, which is this like dog anxiety wrap that a few people may have heard of, and they said, have you done a trademark search? And I said, yeah, I Googled it. There's no other Carpe antiperspirants. And they said, no, have you done like a proper trademark search? And that's when I learned about trademarks and international classes. And in our international class 3, I Googled it. There was no Clutch antiperspirant at the time.
Yeah.
In our international class 3, that's any personal care products, which includes cologne. And Abercrombie and Fitch had a Clutch cologne trademark, which was not doing very well online. The reviews were not very good. And I said, look, guys, they don't care. It's not a hero product for them. They won't mind if we do this. And Bootstrap basically said, that's a very bad attitude, guys. Like, you could just avoid a lot of headaches down the road if you just change the name right now. Yeah. We were extremely reluctant to change the name because this had been a project for us for about a year at that point. And we'd gotten very attached to what we call it, which was Clutch. And I remember David was saying, look, we've got 100 followers on the Facebook page. Like, that's a lot of brand recognition. We're going to lose a lot of brand recognition if we move the name. And they're saying, you haven't even launched the product yet. You have no brand recognition, which was absolutely correct. David and I did some soul searching. We decided, all right, we can do this. We can change the name. And we brainstormed a ton of different names. And, when we initially started the brainstorm, it was just guys in the room. And we were saying, all right, we're going to call it like Alpha or Peak. Somebody proposed Money. So names that would have absolutely doomed our company from the start. And then we started talking to a more diverse cast of friends, including women who were like, why would you call a product Alpha? Yeah. Like, it just feels cool, right? And we ended up with Carpe, which captured that same energy. This was actually proposed by a British friend of ours, incredibly creative guy, who had initially come up with the Clutch idea because he thought it was a great pun. And now he said, if you can't do Clutch, do like Carpe Diem. Still that same seized, confident energy. and everybody liked it. And I think we stumbled into a really good name, except for the people who call it Carpe or Carpe, or you'd think people know how to pronounce Carpe. You'd think Carpe Diem is a common phrase. I feel like
people are looking for like a little apostrophe on the E, and it's not supposed to be there.
No, but then if we did the apostrophe, imagine how awful that would be online. Do we type it into every, on the website, do we type the apostrophe? Do we lose it, only have it in the logo? So,
well, I think that's a really cool story.
Thank you.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, let's get into some of the nitty gritty now. Before you get into getting people to subscribe and stay on and build LTV and really build good product and recognition, you actually have to get the person first, right? Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the evolution of the acquisition strategy. It doesn't look like you guys started off heavily into subscription right away. It looks like more, as Daniel, you mentioned, more in the last year. What were the initial years like? And then what was the shift into subscription focus? Can you give us a little bit about the acquisition strategy in both cases?
Yeah. E-commerce is a very dynamic marketplace right now. So I think best practices change every 2 years, probably twice a year in some cases. At the time when we launched, I am very confident that launching a business on Amazon and our website at the same time was the right thing to do. I've since seen a lot of companies just focus on Amazon. It's a really good tactic, or just focus on their website, and it's a really good tactic. But for us, launching on those two channels was really good because we were able to capitalize on organic acquisition the most. I mean, that's what Amazon continues to be great at, I think, is it is the channel for organic acquisition, whereas Google and selling product on your website, in my experience, isn't as great. But because of these varying trends, how we acquire has changed every year, honestly, as the company's grown. And while most companies were growing on Facebook and Instagram from the time we launched, 2015, we didn't crack that channel for a very long time. And I sort of regret that. I think that if we'd been smarter, I think it was a skill issue, we could have been a lot better at online advertising. But we actually did a lot of TV advertising pre-COVID. And then post-COVID is when we really shifted online. And I think that no matter where we're advertising, what year it is, the marketplace is going to change. The dynamics are going to change. If a new channel pops up and it's underpriced, everybody's going to flock there. So I think you need to be asking yourself, at the end of the day, what are we here to do? We're here to create a solution to a problem that people have, to inform people that we have this solution, right? So people who can benefit from the product, we want to let them know about the product. And the way you do that is just think about, where are these people and how can we reach them where they are? So that means both physically, where people are spending time, which is on social media a lot right now. That's why I think TikTok and Meta advertising continues to be the biggest engine of acquisition for a lot of online brands. And also a bit more conceptually, meeting them where they are regarding their problems. So when it comes to how we talk about our products, how we the kinds of creatives that we create, we're thinking about what will connect with people on a problem solution level. What are the moments that'll make somebody stop and say, hey, that's actually something that I've been struggling with, and it seems like this could be a good solution. I'm ready to give it a try.
Makes sense. So you touched on how Meta, TikTok, and social media has played, and I agree. Even for Obvi, 98% of our spend is between Google, Meta, and TikTok. I'm curious, when you're looking at your acquisition strategy versus when I look at mine, which is not a subscription company.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like, hey, I just want that AOV. I just want that AOV, right?
Okay.
So, and I'm curious, like, is it like, what cost are we getting this subscriber for? And is it like, hey, we need to focus that they have to subscribe, or is it like, if they subscribe, now we'll like focus on maintaining and growing that and building the back end of it. I'm curious, just how is that mental model work when you guys are going to market on different platforms?
I think the implications for customer economics are not that complicated as you suggested. If you don't have a lot of subscription, or if you don't even have a lot of recurring purchase, potentially, you want to be focused on AOV and making sure that you're not losing a ton of money on you're not really losing any money on the first purchase, ideally.
Right.
I think you don't want to be overly optimistic with a subscription model and say, hey, I'm definitely going to retain, so I can afford to lose a lot of money on the first acquisition. But I think all of these paradigms are really downstream of what is the correct model for my product and my customer. And I think for us, we recognized, it took us too long to recognize, because I do think we were potentially thinking about it a lot in the kind of micro of, okay, this is generally how much we're spending on marketing to get a customer, and this is how much they're going to spend on the website. And so this is how much we can afford. And we were really thinking about that game instead of taking a step back and realizing like, okay, are people buying the product in the way that's ideal for them? Because I do think the ideal way for people to buy antiperspirants is retail. I mean, people say this time and again, 85%, 90% of people want to buy these products in retail because there they can take the caps off and smell them. So we're fighting an uphill battle online. But if you're not buying them in retail, it becomes pretty intuitive that you do want something that will come to you every month because you're going to be using up these products. So I think we realized, okay, subscription is the correct model for this kind of product. And if we just put subscription on the website, which to Daniel's point, it's been the past year that subscriptions really started working, but we've been trying to put subscription on the website for the past 5 years. And initially, customers just weren't interested. And it's been 5 years of honestly trying to figure out how do we position it to really make people want to subscribe and recognize that this is the way that will lead to the best experience with the product. Because you can't just force it on people. If you force it on people, they'll get upset, they'll cancel immediately, they might not even convert. So it's a long-term series of tests that led us to, here's how we present subscription, here's how we encourage people to subscribe and have the best results with the product, and really highlighting in many cases that the people who do have the best results with the product tend to be the people who subscribe. Because they get into consistent usage, they get into better results. I am curious though, why aren't y'all subscription based? Because it is a product with consumption that what's the word? It's a consumable, right?
It is consumable. Yeah. So it's interesting, and it's a good question. The way you look at like the health and wellness category, right? Especially for us, which is in like beauty and weight loss, right? Those are two major categories. You take the demographic where we target 50-year-old women in the Midwest that don't have good habits. Okay. And so we're trying to shape them to have better habits around health, wellness, beauty, and weight loss. Now, when you pair this category plus the demo we're going after, I'd rather not take the bet on somebody consistently taking my product.
Interesting.
And then finishing it, and now a new product has arrived to their door.
Yes.
Right? And now they're ready to get that into there. Rather than me saying, hey, we kind of just push the subscription up front by saying, you need to have 3 to 6 months of this. Otherwise, you're not going to see the results you need to.
Interesting.
So we have 136 as our landing page offer. Most of our, like 87% of our orders are between 3 and 6. Nobody buys one. So I think we've trained that mindset, but I just don't want to rely on this demo to consistently finish my product. Yes. I want the shelf that they have or the cabinet they have to deal with it. I don't want to be the one to deal with, I still have too much. I want to push my order off.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think we're kind of skipping ahead on what we were going to talk about here, but you just hit on the biggest challenge, the core challenge with retention and subscription. And I think it's simply what you said. It's product building up too much. Because I think for your product and definitely for ours, the usage rate varies dramatically. If you have a supplement where you're taking one pill every day, most people are going to finish a bottle of 30 pills in 30 days. With an antiperspirant, even if we had, I think, a pretty precise dispensing amount, people's armpits have massively different sizes. People have different preferences on how much they want to apply, what feels right to them. And so we've got people who will finish a stick in 2 weeks, and we've got people who will finish a stick in 3 months. And if we give people too many choices about subscription interval at the start, that'll overwhelm them because they're already trying to choose their products, choose their scents. And if we say, okay, on top of that, how frequently do you think you'll need a new one? They'll say, you know what? I don't know. I'm done. This is too much effort. You want to make things as simple as possible for people up front. So the model that we found to work for us the best is to start everybody on a 1-month subscription cycle and then do everything we can to make it as easy as possible for people to adjust their subscription frequency. Because the number one reason people aren't happy with their subscription is that they just have too much product building up, that they're not using it at the speed that they want to. And so that continues to be, I think, something that we're working on, is figuring out better ways to make it easier for subscribers to adjust their frequency, to get that frequency that they want. But I agree that it's a huge challenge. It is probably the number one retention challenge, is to nail what is that subscription system, that subscription program that will make the customer happy.
You've come to that.
Unfortunately, the number one reason why people go to their portal is to go cancel, right? And so what we're trying to do on the customer portal is like, how do we convince people that the product's not the issue, right? It's the fact that you just have too much.
Yeah.
And so in the cancellation flow, we've been pushing recharge on this as well. But having an option for people when they say they have too much product to edit their frequency, right? I think what a lot of people in the industry do right now is skip, delay, which just kind of pushes the issue off till later. That's the default for everybody.
It is. It's what everyone's trained now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the core issue is that they just get the product too often for how often they use it, right? And so we've been working with Recharge a lot recently on getting the edit frequency as like a cancellation flow reason. That's smart, right? And
Recharge has been great about improvements to the portal to bring these things to the forefront. I think there's a lot of I think there's almost two camps in e-commerce on almost every issue. And both have elements of truth, but I think a lot of people come into e-commerce and they're saying, how can we sort of growth hack? What's the way to improve the CDR? What's the way to reduce churn? And I think the sort of high level, taking a step back approach is, what are the underlying drivers of that? How can we create an experience that will make customers happy and not want to do that? And I think that long term, whenever we're focusing on just making a better experience, understanding the customer problem, that leads to the best outcomes, that leads to the best brand, that leads to people who are excited to share this with their friends and stay engaged with the products. And I think that prioritizing skipping is sort of a growth tactic where it's like, okay, let's just delay that cancellation, versus if you take a step back and you think, why does somebody want to skip? How can we make the product better for them? Because the product isn't just the physical unit of antiperspirant in our case, it's everything. It's how often we ship it, how it's shipped, how it's packaged, is the email communications, it's their entire experience with our brand, I think, is the product. And particularly, I think in a subscription especially, you do need to think of your subscription as part of that product. How can we improve the product for them? We can improve the product by changing the interval to match what works for them. I think if they're coming to us and they're willing to skip, that doesn't indicate that that's not like a win. I mean, in a growth hacking sense, that's a win, but I think more so that's a signal to us that the product isn't quite right, in the sense that the intervals aren't quite right. And if we can fix that for them in an easy way, that's I think the ideal outcome.
I love that.
Customers who delay or skip their order, half of them don't even get to their next order, which is what we found was like fascinating to us. This really just kind of pushes that customer down the road. And yes, you still have an active subscription on there, so you're reducing your churn rate. But at the end of the day, if they never order again, it doesn't really matter.
Which is why, Daniel, I mean, you always have this point about not getting fixated on particular metrics, especially churn rate.
Yeah, churn rate I think is overused a little bit, especially the one where you look at churn rate of your overall subscriber base. I never look at it. It's really just a factor of how many new customers you're bringing in. So, because your new customers have the highest churn rate of any cohort. And so if you're bringing in a lot of new customers, your churn rate's going to be very high. But it's a good thing, right? If your churn rate's 1%, it means you're not growing. So it's super important for us to look at other aspects of the company.
That's a great perspective too.
So you need the holistic picture by all the metrics. And I think at the end of the day, you're not, these kind of like little tweaks and growth hacks and psychological hacks might do a little bit on the margin, but people who do not like the product you're offering, whether it's the physical product or the way the subscription works, they will leave. They do not want to stick with that. And people who like it, they will stick with it. And the big opportunity we have is to change it, whether it's improving the product for people who are not getting results from the product or something like that, or improving the subscription from people who don't like the way the subscription is structured, to move people from the camp of people who don't want it to people who want it.
Makes I mean, you guys hit incredible points. It's you guys touched a little bit on communication and messaging in a little bit as well, and it reminds me of an anecdote. I was actually I was talking to the founder of Seed. It's a probiotic company. You guys may have heard of it, and it's actually a product I've taken for a few years now. And I was talking to him, and they said there was one thing that they did. And I'm curious if you guys have any one big moment too. But they had one thing that drastically changed consumption and reduced churn. And it was like, oh, no way. There's no way this is it. But it was. What they had was, when they launched, they were just called a prebiotic and probiotic supplement. There'd always be like, people are taking it, they're taking it sometimes, taking it some days they won't. A 30-day supply is some lasting 43 and a half days. Like, how do we make it 30 days, right? Because they're timing, because they give you a refillable package that they wanted to time properly. And they did this one test where they changed the product name to daily prebiotic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay?
I know this.
And he's telling me, and he was like, that completely changed our consumption to be at the 33-day mark. And I'm like, that's an insane improvement. It's like a 25% improvement in consumption because somebody just understood that I need to do this daily, and they just were told that. And so now you're treating it like a vitamin, right? Because a daily multivitamin is typically how we're trained to look at our multis.
That's a great example.
Right? So I'm very curious, like talk to me a little bit about messaging. I'm sure you guys have done a plethora of tests, but are there some cool ones or any cool ones that kind of stick out as like tests that you guys did that kind of help change certain parts of whether it's consumption or churn or any of that in your end?
I love this seed example. I'm familiar with it as the daily prebiotic, and I didn't realize that's where it came from. And that's crazy that was such a big difference for them. I don't know if they've changed their website since I looked at it, but when I last looked at it a couple years ago, it was one of the most beautiful websites I've ever seen.
It is. Yeah. It still is.
It's stunning. It's stunning. So great work to the seed team. Very analogously, if you look at the research for antiperspirants, you'll find that applying before bed leads to better results. And in general, using twice a day will lead to better results. And so this is something that we would sometimes say in like post-purchase emails or even in package inserts. Nobody reads that. We kind of change our paradigm about what the packaging needs to serve for an e-commerce business. In retail, the packaging needs to sell the product. And I think that's the way that everybody approaches packaging by default. In an e-commerce business, you've got all of this messaging around the packaging in any context in which the packaging exists. So on Amazon, you've got all the messaging around the package. On your website, you've got all the messaging around. So the packaging doesn't really need to sell the product. But once the product is in somebody's hands, the packaging is the only thing that they've got to go by. And so we started thinking of the packaging as the only place, the most prominent place we can communicate a message of usage instructions. And it needs to be something as simple as, it's brilliant to me that you just call it daily prebiotic, and that's the messaging. For us, the similar example is we tested on the packaging saying apply 2 times daily, because at the end of the day, that's what the research was showing was the best results. And I think that was so much of an ask for people that they almost ignored it.
Yeah.
And we changed it to just say apply before bed, which makes a massive difference. That's, I think, 90% of the value that you're going to get versus applying 2 times daily. And we saw that in the data. People were having subjectively better experiences. They were sticking with the product because they were getting better results when they were applying before bed. And that's the most prominent thing you'll see on our packaging right now, besides Carpe, the scent, and then apply before bed.
That is super cool. You guys are so dialed in. I love that.
It's a lot of fun.
It's awesome. I want to touch on one more piece before we move on to a little bit more on customer portal and cancellation and whatnot. But taking customers who didn't subscribe, came in as a one-time purchase, and now you're trying to turn them into, hey, you've made a decision, but now let's make a commitment, right? Give me a little bit of that journey. Any cool tactics there? What are you guys doing there to? I'm assuming a lot of it is email, SMS, messaging oriented. But is there certain things that you guys have done that is been super successful in being able to convert one-time purchase to subscriber post-purchase?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is that we've always had a much higher subscription percentage on repeat purchase. When somebody's coming back to the brand, they've already tried the product and they're much more willing to say, okay, now I'm going to stick with it. And it's still something that I think you have to experiment for your own brand, for your own product, for your own purchase flows. What is going to persuade the customer that, hey, subscribing is worth it for you? Because I think we all crave flexibility and freedom. So if it's just like subscribe, for no benefit, you will probably feel like, why am I locking myself into something? Why am I committing to something? And it really varies by product, but we've tested a lot of messages that basically reassure, hey, we have a portal, you can change frequency at any time, you can cancel at any time. So don't worry, you're not really locking yourself into anything here. There's a financial benefit to subscribing. We have a discount for subscribers. And at the end of the day, you're going to have better results if this product keeps coming to you and you keep consistently using it. So there's not a single specific message or a single specific touch point where I feel like it made a world of difference, but testing those different messages at different times really incrementally started increasing our subscription rate. And I think the way you're thinking about it is absolutely right, looking at it with different cohorts of new customers and returning customers. I think the biggest challenge that we have in understanding returning customer behavior is that when you're looking at website conversion rates, you can see post-conversion whether somebody who purchases a new customer or a returning customer, but you can't break out the conversion rate of those two cohorts because you don't see who browsing the website is a new customer, returning customer. So I wish we had that data. That would make optimizing these things a lot easier.
Oh yeah, yeah. That would be that would feel like godlike. Right?
Exactly.
No, that's really cool. I like that. I want to pivot a little bit now into like you've now acquired, whether it's customers or new people through your funnel. They've seemingly subscribed. Now it's obviously keeping them subscribed. Also making sure that if they're on their way out the door, you have as many ways to make sure they don't walk out. So let's pivot into there. How do you guys tie in loyalty, rewards, and some of those elements to make sure that you guys strengthen the need to stay subscribed? And maybe, and I'm curious on your point, maybe those things aren't really strengthening it. It's more so just like nice to haves, but really what strengthens it is the product and the messaging around it. So I'm curious what place does rewards, loyalty play into keeping a subscriber happy and keeping them subscribed?
Yeah. Historically, Recharge hasn't had a way for us to like a loyalty program or give credits to customers. They just released it recently, so I'm super excited. Okay. Our first test we launched is giving customers cash back on their order when they get their first recurring shipment, right?
When they get their first.
When they get their first recurring shipment, give them some cash back. Essentially, it's like a discount on your next order.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have data yet, but I'm super excited to see that come in over the next like 2 or 3 weeks.
That's awesome. So, are you doing that flatline across the board no matter the customer, or is it a certain type of cohort?
New customers, 50-50.
Cool.
See what happens.
Very cool.
Yeah. I don't want me to be controversial here, but we always, internally we kind of take sides on what we think is going to happen with the test. I don't know, maybe it will have an impact. I think that loyalty programs massively vary based on the brand and the product. And I think if you have, this is an oversimplification, but perhaps if you have a bit more of a commoditized product, and I'm thinking of air travel is like the most successful example of loyalty programs. I think that works. I think in air travel, it really works because you're sitting down and you're looking at flights at similar times by similar airlines with similar prices. And then you're saying, okay, am I going to do Delta or am I going to do American Airlines? And I think you're going to do the one that you are earning benefits with if you continue to fly with them. I think that with something like an antiperspirant, you're using our product because it works for you, or you're not using our product because you've got something that you prefer. And I don't think that if somebody's unhappy with our product, they're going to stick around because they are getting points or something like that. So I think for us, it's coming back to making sure that the product is something that people genuinely want to continue using, both in the physical stick of antiperspirant and the subscription program. So to me, the most important aspect in retention is making sure that we can adapt that subscription, adapt that product to what the person needs. That means making it easy for people to swap sends. That means making it easy for people to change their subscription interval. That is the big thing on retention. And then really getting close to churn. I think that churn save is a similar thing. If somebody really intends to leave, and you are saying, hey, are you leaving because you don't like something about the product that we can change? And they're like, no, I don't care. I don't care if you change the subscription interval. I just want to leave. Then at that point, I don't think there's really much you can do to stop them. I think if they're not happy, they're going to leave, and that's fine. What you really, really desperately want to avoid is losing the people who don't want to leave. Yeah. And I think this happens with a certain subset of passive churn, where people will either change their address and they won't know how to update it, and they'll get frustrated and they'll just say, this isn't worth it. I'm just going to cancel it, because canceling is sometimes, it's pretty obvious. You're just like cancel, delete. Yep. Changing an address, you might have to go in there, figure out what your subscription is, how it's structured, how you change the shipping address and everything. So I think that shows up as active churn, but to me, it's a form of passive churn, is losing people because they move. The most prominent form of passive churn that I think neither the customer wants nor the brand is if somebody's credit card expires, or they need to cancel their credit card because there was fraud, and they didn't necessarily want to lose the subscription. So they are saying, okay, well, let me update this payment method. Sure. And the friction of updating the payment method is so high that they don't do it, and they give up on the subscription. I think that's a tragedy for everybody involved. And this is a difficult technical problem. This isn't something that I think the brands can do, because it's dealing with credit card information. So like we could make some kind of form that we email to people and makes it super easy for them to update their credit card. We can't do that. That is very not PCI compliant. Yeah. So we really need to count on the subscription platforms to do that. And that's why we're happy that Recharge has made this such a priority of making it easy for customers to update their payment information. Because, I mean, literally just this morning, I was speaking with our customer service team. It was a team-wide stand-up, and they were talking about a couple customers who'd reached out because they just couldn't figure out how to update their payment information. And the specific problem that they described is something that I think Recharge is like rolling out imminently, right? Mm-hmm. And this isn't to say that this was a shortcoming in Recharge. This is something that I think I've seen on every subscription platform we've used. Recharge has prioritized making this easy for customers, but it's difficult. It's credit card information. So, you know, the platform has to figure out how to do it in a compliant way that's still very easy for customers. And that's one thing that I think we've been incredibly happy with Recharge about, because our history with subscription is we used to be on, when we launched the website, we built our own first e-commerce website on Ruby on Rails because we were dumb and I was a computer science major. And I think also at the time, Shopify, for whatever reason, thought that it was going to be launching, it was going to be the facilitator for marketplace websites. Like the economy was going to be marketplace websites. And pretty quickly it became apparent it's going to be the marketplaces or, you know, Amazon, Walmart, and then it's brand websites that sometimes have one product, two products. Sometimes they have a wider assortment. But in 2015, I don't think Shopify was good at one product websites. And that's why we wrote our own. For the checkout facilitator, we used something called FoxyCart, which is a very lightweight product. I think they're still around. And I think for that use case, they're very good. And they have integrated subscriptions. But again, they don't make things like updating payment information very easy for customers. And so when we moved to Shopify, Recharge was that big incumbent, was kind of the only option in the room. And so moving to Shopify necessitated moving to Recharge. And it was a solid subscription platform, but then Shopify really opened the ecosystem. And I was pretty confident that Recharge was going to go the way of like the old ERPs or Salesforce or any of these other bloated SaaS companies that are just like, they've been the incumbent. They don't know how to be anything else other than the monopoly. So when the new entrants come in, the new entrants are going to be much better. And so we were speaking with these new entrants. We actually started a migration to one of these new pop-up subscription providers. And we found in that migration that the CEO had basically directly lied to us about a capability, which he said these particular tokens, I think the detail was something like Apple Pay. Like we weren't able to transfer Apple Pay onto this platform. And they'd said verbatim, like, we can definitely do this. We start the entire migration, which is a very costly and headache of a process. And fortunately, we always kind of made sure that we weren't destroying anything that would prevent us from going back to Recharge in a snap. And when we realized like we were going to lose subscribers passively in this migration because they just couldn't migrate these tokens, we said, we can't do this. We're going back to Recharge. And we were blown away by how much Recharge seemed to, I have a disagreement with the folks at Recharge here. I think from my perspective, they really stepped up their game that year. I think it's an incredible team full of like, when I met the team, I was shocked that this is a company that kind of was able to have a monopoly for a while. Because generally, you know these companies that have a monopoly and they're like bloated full of C-levels that, you know, are in suits and living in penthouses. And the CEO of Recharge, Oshin, he's a great guy, really like personable, and will talk to you and really drive Recharge to become a better and better product. So Recharge has been putting in the work to continue to roll out the solutions that really help make subscriptions what customers want them to be, make it a great product for brands like us, and be the market leader in subscriptions.
Well said. And I think it's so true. I think the biggest point you made, though, is like we're all used to seeing some of these legacy providers, they call them, as like these big bloated organizations. And then you find out like some of them actually still care even about the newest customer as much as they care about the oldest customer. And that's actually what's going to inspire innovation and preservation. Like that's the two things you need for anything to continue onward. So I think extremely well said. And again, just love how you guys think about each step and component of your business. I'm curious on, and I know we're coming to a close, but I'm curious on a couple more things, which is around, you know, that cancellation piece, right? And I know it's like you guys talked a lot about it today too, but I still feel that a lot of people think that as soon as somebody approaches that cancellation mindset, that they've lost that person, right? I'm curious, like, do you have like multiple tiers of strategies? And you don't have to tell me the strategies, but do you have multiple tiers of strategy of like, if you choose this, then you go to this quadrant. But if you're in this quadrant, you choose this, you go to this quadrant. Like, is it extremely sophisticated as soon as somebody enters in that arena? Or do you guys also have some pulse of saying, you know what, like, if it's because of this reason, this person's probably going to walk out, and it is part of the game?
I'll let you speak to the technical details, But it's exactly as you laid out, and kind of tying back to earlier our discussion of the paradigm of, look, you're not going to get somebody to stick with a product, the subscription being part of the product that they don't like. So if they're coming to you and they say, I want to cancel, I think we do want to know, why do you want to cancel? And is it something that we can fix for you right now? And if the answer is no, then all right, have a great day. Sorry that it didn't work out. And like, hopefully we can do better in the future. But in many cases, we can do it. Like maybe it's getting financially unsustainable for them. Maybe we can figure out a different price. Maybe the frequency is bad. We can figure out a better frequency solution. And I think Recharge enables this conversation through their cancellation flows. So do you want to?
Yeah, I think the number one thing you can do is go to your customer tickets and read through 500 of them, right? That's where I had the biggest unlock on this cancellation flow, was going in, reading customer tickets and seeing why people wanted to cancel. It was mind blowing. Like, it was not about the product. It was not about, I didn't know it was a subscription. It was literally just that they had too much. And the way that we solved that in the cancellation flow is like, we totally unlocked a lot of things in terms of like what responses we default to, what those responses lead to in the cancellation flow. We've unlocked a lot there, but ultimately, like, if they're going to cancel, they're going to cancel. We're not going to make it 15 steps to make it a hassle, right? Like, it's 2 steps. Right. You answer a question, we might give you a discount, and then you cancel it, right? Like, there's not really much we can do. We can make it 15 steps. The same amount of people are going to cancel, right? So it's really just about reading those customer tickets, understanding why they're canceling, and trying to solve that upfront.
Exactly. So to the point of multiple layers, I mean, we can solve that in customer portal, and some of those insights that we learn, we can try to solve ahead of them even having the thought to cancel. We can prevent, them ever having the intent of going to the customer portal to cancel.
Incredible. Great insights. So 2 last things, but one last icebreaker to wrap up the show. What is, besides Carpe, what's your guys' favorite subscription brand today? One that you're subscribed to, or one that you love watching?
I think Oats Overnight is a popular one.
Oats Overnight is super popular.
Yeah, it's everyone loves it in our office.
Is eating Oats Overnight. What am I actually subscribed to? I think
I don't subscribe to much. My filters in my house, like the air filters, that's water filters.
Smart.
Yeah, those are really
smart.
easy.
I'm always like 6 months behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the winning subscriptions are the subscriptions you forget about. So you might think like, okay, some of the SaaS stuff. A lot of SaaS stuff, it's annoying that you're subscribed to. Like, why do I have to pay for Microsoft Office every month now? So then it's, what is the SaaS that I don't even notice, that I don't even mind? It's something like Amazon Prime. I think very few people churn from Amazon Prime, so that's a great product. But then taking a step back, like, I still think of Amazon Prime as a subscription. I don't think of my internet or my water or something like that as a subscription. And I think that should be the model for all of us.
Necessities, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And if you can make your product that much of a necessity and make the subscription that, simple, I think that is the goal for all of us.
I love that. Well, that's a great closing line. One thing we love to do in all of our Tomorrow Brand episodes is, if you guys can each of you can give one piece of advice for a brand that's looking to become a tomorrow brand, and a brand that's going to be sustainable with some level of foundation around subscription and curating customers that stick around. What's the one piece of advice you have for a brand founder or operator out there? And we can start with you, Dan.
You need to have a winning product, right? It makes my job very easy when our product is this good and it's the best in the market. Like, you're not going to be able to scale a brand if you don't have the product that everyone loves. Yeah. So figure out the product that people like, and it'll be very easy.
Love that.
Talk to your customers. And that's exactly what Daniel meant, reading tickets. It doesn't mean you have to call up your customers. We used to do that. Everybody on the team actually would call customers that, we'd email and say, do you mind having a phone call with us? We'd have physical calls with them and learn from them. But it is as simple as going in, being really close with your customer service team and making sure that they're passing up insights. And then you yourself going in there, hearing what the customer is saying, reading the reviews. That's how you get to a product that everybody loves. And that's how you get to a winning brand.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for an incredible episode, and I don't say this lightly. I've had my share of 100+ episodes I've recorded, but there's not too many where I can say that shared a lot of insights, a lot of great just banter on how to think about things with different perspectives. So I'm super excited because we have a lot of young viewers, and we also have viewers of brands that have 8 and 9 figures that learn a lot from this. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to make this happen.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It was a blast.